On August 31, 1962, Hamer and 17 others attempted to vote but failed a literacy test, which meant they were denied this right. On December 4, just after returning to her hometown, she went to the courthouse in Indianola to take the test again, but failed and was turned away. Hamer told the registrar, "You'll see me every 30 days till I pass." On January 10, 1963, she took the test a third time. She was successful and was informed that she was now a registered voter in Mississippi. But when she attempted to vote that fall, she discovered her registration gave her no actual power to vote, as her county also required voters to have 2 poll tax receipts. This requirement had emerged in some, mostly former Confederate, states after the right to vote was first given to all races by the 1870 ratification of the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution. These laws, along with the literacy tests and local government acts of coercion, were used against Black people and Native Americans. Hamer later paid for and acquired the requisite poll tax receipts. They talked about how it was our right, that we could register and vote. I had never heard, until 1962, that Black people could register and vote. Hamer began to become more involved in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee after these incidents. She attended many Southern Christian Leadership Conferences, SCLC, where she sometimes taught classes, and various SNCC, pronounced, SNCC, workshops. She traveled to gather signatures for petitions to attempt to be granted federal resources for impoverished Black families across the South. In early 1963, she became a SNCC field secretary for voter registration and welfare programs. Many of these first attempts to register more Black voters in Mississippi were met with the same problems Hamer had found in trying to register herself. "We been waitin' all our lives, and still gettin' killed, still gettin' hung, still gettin' beat to death. Now we're tired waitin'." After her attempt to vote, Hamer was fired by her boss, but her husband was required to stay on the land until the end of the harvest. Hamer moved between homes over the next several days for protection. On September 10, while staying with friend Mary Tucker, Hamer was shot at 15 times in a drive-by shooting by racists. No one was injured in the event. The next day, Hamer and her family evacuated to nearby Tallahatchie County for 3 months, fearing retaliation by the Ku Klux Klan for her attempt to vote. "I guess if I'd had any sense, I'd have been a little scared. But what was the point of being scared? The only thing they could do was kill me, and it kinda seemed like they'd been trying to do that a little bit at a time since I could remember." On June 9, 1963, Hamer was returning from a voter registration workshop by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, in Charleston, South Carolina. Traveling by bus with co-activists, they stopped for a break in Winona, Mississippi. Some of the activists went inside a local cafe, but were refused service by the waitress. Shortly after, a Mississippi State Highway patrolman took out his billy club and intimidated the activists into leaving. One of the group decided to take down the officer's license plate number. While doing so, the patrolman and a police chief entered the cafe and arrested the party. Hamer left the bus and inquired if they could continue their journey back to Greenwood, Mississippi. At that point, the officers arrested her as well. Once in county jail, Hamer's colleagues were beaten by the police in the booking room, including 15-year-old June Johnson, for not addressing officers as "sir." Hamer was then taken to a cell where 2 inmates were ordered, by the state trooper, to beat her using a baton. The police ensured she was held down during the almost fatal beating, and when she started to scream, beat her further. Hamer was also groped repeatedly by officers during the assault. When she attempted to resist, she stated an officer walked over, took my dress, pulled it up over my shoulders, leaving my body exposed to 5 men. Another in her group was beaten until she was unable to talk. A third, a teenager, was beaten, stomped on, and stripped. An activist from SNCC came the next day to see if he could help but was beaten until his eyes were swollen shut when he did not address an officer in the expected deferential manner.